The NFL season has officially reached double-digit territory. It's around this time of year when we see which teams can take that final step towards separating from the rest of the pack. Let's see who continues their momentum from Week 9, as a lot of teams came up with big victories. There were some great games overall, and some blowout ones unfortunately as well, but we managed to get 10 wins on the week, so let's see if we can do even better here in Week 10. Here's my breakdown and predictions of all the action. Starting off on Thursday night, the Baltimore Ravens are taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a huge game. Not only does it have major implications for the Ravens and keeping pace in the AFC North, but the Bengals, on the other hand, need to win every game they can to even stay in the playoff conversation at all. In all likelihood, there will be a lot of points put up on the board, just like in their previous meeting. Both offenses are extremely high octane, and that's how I expect things to go. It's the crazy pass game of Burrow versus the efficient run/pass game of the Baltimore Ravens. Honestly, though, I favor the Ravens for two reasons. One, they've been a bit more consistent this season overall compared to the Bengals, who sometimes get off to slow starts, but also historically, this matchup has favored the Ravens in recent memory. In the Joe Burrow era, they have usually lost to the Ravens, even in the season series in general, getting swept. I've been absolutely destroyed by picking the Bengals in previous years in these exact types of setups, and they usually find a way to lose. Outside of 2021, Burrow and the Bengals just have a hard time beating this Baltimore team, and I don't want to bet against that, so I have the Ravens winning a close, high-scoring affair. Anyway, though, moving on to Sunday, we're starting off with a morning game as we bless Germany with the presence of the New York Giants versus the Carolina Panthers. What a disaster of an international game. And at the end of the day, this could actually go either way. Even though the Giants definitely feel like the better team, they have continuously found ways to lose games. While the Panthers, even though it came against a banged-up Saints team, still got a win, where Bryce Young actually played clutch. This could be a chance for him to develop his confidence and his skill set as a player against a Giants team that is in severe disarray. However, I'm way too much of a coward to actually pick the Panthers to win this game. I have the Giants taking it as they're just a better, more talented team. They've been a dumpster fire this season, but the Panthers are the least talented team in the league, arguably. You can't depend on them to show consistent results. I don't know how Bryce Young, or I guess Andy Dalton, would have any answer for the Giants' pass rush. It's a lot different than playing an old, banged-up Saints team. Dexter Lawrence has been a man on a mission. Brian Burns should be a problem as well. I don't see how they handle that pressure. And the Giants, there's so many people with their jobs on the line here, they cannot afford to lose this game. They'll ruin their tank as they always do, and they'll get this win. Daniel Jones sucks, but he can certainly destroy a weak Panthers defense like this one. Then for the 1 p.m. Sunday slots, starting with the Chicago Bears versus the New England Patriots. Both teams, coming off rough losses. The Bears couldn't do anything offensively against the Cardinals. They got murdered in that one, while the Patriots suffered a tough loss against one of the worst teams in the league in the Titans. Not a great look at all for them. Both teams, I'm not feeling too great about in this game, and somehow, some way, it almost feels like a 50-50. The Bears are definitely a better team, but they have found a lot of ways to lose games this year, so I wouldn't completely rule out the idea of this game being way too close for comfort, but in the end, I think I will pick the Chicago Bears to win. Even though they are extremely inconsistent, they've usually taken care of business against the weaker opponents on their schedule. That's why they even have a decent record to begin with, and the Patriots definitely fall under that category. Defensively, the Bears have held up great. Patriots offense isn't amazing. Their O-line can't block at all. So the Bears should have a field day. Maybe this ends up being a low-scoring game as Caleb and the guys still try and figure some stuff out. But I think they'll have a lot of opportunities to capitalize in this game because the Patriots offense won't do much of anything, and that should be all it takes. And then you've got the Buffalo Bills versus the Indianapolis Colts. Bills should win this somewhat comfortably, as they're just in a significantly better position compared to the Colts. This is a 7-2 franchise, and they're on a big winning streak right now. They've looked great in the process, and they're playing a Colts team that feels really lost. Despite what their record might say, it feels like this org is in disarray, thanks to their whole quarterback fiasco. Almost feels like nobody's happy over there right now. It amazes me they have as many wins as they do. The Bills, they're just in a significantly better situation, right? Offensively, I have a lot more confidence in them. They're way more consistent. Joe Flacco has his games, and maybe he can have a good one here, but it may not matter, as the Colts feel a little too one-dimensional without Anthony Richardson out there. In some ways, Flacco's better, but there's not really any RPOs you can run or read options. It just makes game planning a lot easier, and Jonathan Taylor can't get it going as much with Flacco under center, and that significantly works to the Bills' advantage, because that run game is the scariest part of the Indianapolis Colts for sure. I think Buffalo beat a very incompetent team that feels like they're about to explode. A game that could be a little more interesting, though, is the Broncos versus the Chiefs, an AFC West divisional battle. The first matchup between these two, it just feels very trap gamey to me. Chiefs are obviously favored in this one. They're definitely the better team on paper, and yet all indicators will tell you this could be uncomfortably close. The Broncos defense is ferocious, and they gave the Chiefs a lot of trouble last year, and Mahomes, for the most part, had some turnover issues this year. This could be a rough outing for the Kansas City Chiefs, where the Broncos keep it close, and they make them earn every single point. Honestly, if I was a betting man, I might take that spread. Seems a little generous. But at the end of the day, I'm not falling for the bait. I can't go with the Broncos to win this game as much as I'm tempted to. The Chiefs are just the better team, and it feels like they're starting to show improvement now that they have D-Hop on the team. Offensively, I think they've evolved a lot since some of those middle weeks where they struggled, and I think they'll take care of business and beat the Broncos. For a while, it might be close as Mahomes maybe throws a pick or two, but they will eventually pull away. I can't trust Bo Nix to play well against a good Chiefs defense like this. Even if they're not the Super Bowl version, I still think they'll give that guy some trouble, and that'll be enough to win. They'll make more use of the small number of opportunities they get. Moving on to another divisional game, the Atlanta Falcons take on the New Orleans Saints. The last time these two played, it was a banger matchup in the early season, but needless to say, things have changed a lot since that last game against each other. Their trajectories have changed a bunch. Atlanta are currently in control of the NFC South by a couple of games. They look like they're primed to win it, while the Saints have lost 7 games in a row, and they just fired their coach, and they're extremely banged up on top of it all. This is a tough task for the Saints. Their season's in danger, and they need a win. It's been way too long. They'll probably come out there and play hard. You know, it's always going to happen in those divisional games, but I can't just not go with the Falcons here. Atlanta are in a significantly better situation right now. They beat the Saints team once when they were healthy, so with them diminished like this, with their morale down, I'm expecting them to win a lot more handily this time. My main issue is I don't know how the Saints generate a lot of explosive plays needed to keep themselves in this contest. With Olave down, losing Shaheed as well, they're basically just depending on their tight ends, it feels like, and Alvin Kamara, who's more of just a workhorse back, you know? It's going to be tough for them to keep up with this healthy Atlanta team, and that's ultimately the difference maker. And then you've got the San Francisco 49ers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This could be a banger in the making. There's potential for Mike Evans to maybe come back in this matchup, but on the other side, Christian McCaffrey is looking like he could be making his debut for the San Francisco 49ers after battling injury. This could be a good game. Both teams fight hard. The Buccaneers, despite facing adversity, have still been competitive, damn near beating the Kansas City Chiefs. I like where they're at. You still can't count them out even with some injuries on the table. But at the same time, the 49ers, right, they haven't been at full strength basically this entire year. They're getting McCaffrey back, which completely changes their offense, and they're coming off a bye week where they had extra preparation, while the Bucs only get 6 days to prepare for this game. All indicators to me would say that the 49ers should be slight favorites. It'll be a really close and uncomfortable game, but the way the 49ers can operate with McCaffrey is just so much different compared to what they were doing in the previous weeks, and that'll be a huge difference maker. We've seen how much he means to the offense, and that'll be enough for this team to get the win. And then you have quite possibly one of the most interesting games of the week, the 6-2 Steelers versus the 7-2 Commanders. Two of the best performers in the league going head to head. The revitalized Russell Wilson plus a stout defense versus Jaden Daniels going on a potential MVP mission. I'm loving this matchup. This feels like a straight toss-up. I love what both sides are doing right now, but generally the Commanders probably should be favored to win this game, as Jaden Daniels and those guys have been a bit more consistent overall compared to the Steelers, who have made some changes here and there and have struggled on offense from time to time. but something within me is telling me to pick the Steelers to win this game. Knowing me, I'll regret it because every time I pick against Jaden Daniels, he usually proves me wrong. But I feel like this Commanders team is overdue for a big challenge. I know we kind of saw it against the Chicago game a couple of weeks ago, but I feel like the Steelers are a different beast. Just with how they're playing right now, they're coming off a bye, they're fresh, they're ready to go. Defensively, this will be the toughest team they have played so far this year, and I like the way Russ is moving the ball right now. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like there's been a lot of easy wins for this Commanders team lately. And I think the Steelers are a tough competitor being under Mike Tomlin. That defense is going to get some stops, which is something the Commanders aren't always used to. And I don't know how I feel about their defense. They traded for Marshawn Lattimore, but God knows when he'll be ready to play out there. And I think Russ is going to cook them. I like the way he's played so far this season. And I think if he can do it against the Jets secondary, he could definitely do it against the Commanders secondary as well. That balanced attack will overwhelm them, and they'll edge out a close victory. In the final 1 p.m. slot, it's the Vikings versus the Jaguars. Man, even though the Vikings are the better team on paper, without a doubt, you can't help but feel like it's going to be close. You never know what the spread and the over and the under on this type of game, because the Jaguars always find a way to make you sweat. It usually doesn't translate to wins, sadly, but they've played a lot of good teams close this year, and they could certainly do the same against this Vikings team, but they probably do fall short. I am picking the Vikings to straight up win this game for 2 reasons. One, they're just the better, more balanced team, but also the Jags find unique ways to lose always. They can get right there, they can get within striking distance, but they can never finish you off. They can't get that key stop, they can't find the end zone when they need to. It's just the team of destiny when it comes to losing this year. It should be a really good game, especially because I'm not as high on the Vikings because of how they've played recently. There's room for the Jaguars to take advantage of that, but Sam Darnold can certainly carve up this Jags defense. It is not promising. Him and Justin Jefferson probably have a huge day, and that should be all it takes. In the 4 p.m. location, first is the Tennessee Titans versus the LA Chargers, and we're all going with the Chargers. I mean, come on. The Titans are terrible. It took an overtime push to beat the New England Patriots. Mason Rudolph didn't even play that great in that game, and against the Chargers, who at least have a somewhat reliable defense, he'll probably struggle even more. I'm expecting it to be low scoring, as the Tennessee defense is actually one of the better ones in the league, but they don't have the execution factor on offense for it to matter. Chargers will slowly bully their way through. Justin Herbert, he's been throwing the ball downfield more. He's going to get 1 or 2 in this game, and I'm sure they'll just run the ball with J.K. Dobbins, maintain possession, win a low-scoring game, and that's that. And after that, you have America's Game of the Week, boys. How exciting! The Eagles take on the Cowboys, an NFC East divisional rivalry match. Usually, these end up being bangers. These two have a tendency to split and play some very intense matchups. But with where the Cowboys are at right now, I don't know if that's the case this time, especially with Dak Prescott going down. I don't know, man. Cooper Rush isn't that bad. I'll give him credit there. I think he could keep it close for a couple of quarters, but the Eagles are bound to pull away, as the Cowboys, even when they're healthy, haven't played so great, but also they've been terrible against the run. And they're playing Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. That sounds like a disaster in the making to me. Saquon, the guy that had to deal with getting beat up by the Cowboys on the Giants, he's going to be pissed off in this game. This is way too good of an opportunity for the Eagles to pass up on, and I know they're going to take it. Anyway, in the next 4 p.m. game, we have the Cardinals versus the Jets. Another toss-up-y kind of vibe. The Cardinals are on a winning streak right now. They've been clutch throughout. They just got a dominant win over the Bears, but they're playing a Jets team that's maybe feeling a little revitalized. They got that big win over Houston on Halloween, and maybe that's the factor that finally gets them to play better, get out of their own heads, and make a comeback in the AFC playoff race. The talent is definitely there. It's more so just about not getting in your own heads and executing. If Rodgers keeps finding Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, it's going to be a problem for this Cardinals defense, which doesn't offer a lot when it comes to their secondary. But of course, that's all in theory. Basically, that's how this entire season is gone for the Jets. All these things look good on paper, but then it never actually translates into anything. And until I see them win consistently, I don't know if I want to pick pick them to beat relevant opponents. It's crazy to say that because like the Cardinals are usually basement dwellers, but they've played well this year. They've clutched out some wins, and I could see them doing that against the Jets. They have genuinely been a more consistent team. I've bet against the Cardinals a lot in recent weeks, and they've made me pay for it every single time. So why not jump on the trend this time and pick Arizona to win? This Jets team is not trustworthy still, as far as I'm concerned. I love the way that Kyler and the boys are playing, and I think they'll win on like some kind of game-winning touchdown, field goal, or big defensive stop. I actually am starting to believe in this Arizona team, while the Jets, not so much. As for the Sunday night matchup, the Lions are playing the Texans, another game that on paper could be an absolute banger. Could be a super high scoring affair, Jared Goff versus CJ Stroud. This sounds epic on the surface. I mean, Nico Collins could be coming back for the Texans potentially. That could be huge. That could be a needle mover for sure. Two offenses that rely heavily on the run and those big passing plays downfield. Man, it is a tough one, but right now, it's kind of hard to go against Detroit, you know? They've been so red hot. They've been executing damn near flawlessly on offense every single week. We just saw them put the Packers in their place in a big divisional game, and there's just no way in hell I can go against them until they actually show signs of cooling off. Defensively, they've held their own. Goff hasn't been making like any mistakes, and the Texans defense, while isn't bad, isn't one that necessarily terrifies you either. So the Lions probably just make more plays in this one. The Texans, after all, haven't exactly looked all that pretty in a bunch of their games. They're 6-3, but a lot of them have been uncomfortable. And against a top-tier contender like this, I don't know how much I can trust them right now. So I'm going Lions all the way. And finally, on Monday night, the Miami Dolphins are playing the LA Rams. Another intriguing game, all in a row here. Two high-power offenses going head-to-head. The Rams are looking to keep pace in the NFC West, while the Dolphins are looking just to get some kind of win to potentially save their season. Most indicators would tell you this should be the Rams games to win, as they've been the better team over the last stretch or so, and they're at home as well. But I think I'm going to go with the Dolphins to win this game. I don't know if I'd call it an upset, but they are the underdogs, at least by a slight margin in this one, as I just doubt this can continue forever. This Dolphins team only having 2 wins and not really having any big games offensively, it doesn't sit right with me knowing who's on this football team. They're so overdue for one of those vintage Tua to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle matches where everyone's just dominating their individual matchups, and I think they have a good opportunity against the Rams, who defensively leave a lot to be desired, still have a lot to work on. I don't know how their secondary handles all of that power on the Dolphins if they can just execute and get back to their normal selves. They're overdue, man. I don't make up the rules. It feels like a risk going with them. It's probably the better idea to go with the Rams, who, you know, are actually in contention to make the playoffs, but I just don't see any way the Dolphins go out quietly. They're too talented of a team right now, and I think they're going to get a bounce back win here against the Rams in a shootout. And that is going to wrap up my predictions for Week 10 of the NFL season. Let me know what you think of my Preds down in the comments below and who you are going with this week and what your best bets are. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more weekly NFL predictions.